Fungi outnumber plants 5 to 10 to 1. And I just, I speak at TED, and I've gone to these TED conferences, but it's shocking. With the smartest brains in the world, not until just recently did they realize what us mycologists have known for a long time. 30% of the soil mass, when you're walking on soil, the 30% of the biological carbon is fungal. And the biggest,
whoa, say that again. 30%.
30% of soil is fungal mass, living and dead, of healthy soil. So, and this is the biggest repository of carbon in the world. In the ground is related to these fungal networks. So there is about 8.3 to about 10 million species on the planet. Right now, about half of those are fungal species. They outnumber plants up to 8 to 1, 10 to 1 by some estimates. Really nice, interesting metric. And 1 meter of a tree root, for every meter of a tree root, there's a kilometer of mycelium. Now think of that. 3 feet versus 2,200 feet. So that the extensiveness of the mycelial network in our landscapes is vast. And I call it Earth's natural internet. These are membranes that are literally sensitive. I think they're sentient. They respond to every footprint that we take on this planet. And as you walk across landscapes, you're breaking wood, and that makes new nutrition available. So the competition of fungi to find that new nutrition is fierce. And so first to the menu wins. These fungal networks have great plasticity in being able to code for new sequences from their DNA. So all you need is one of those hundreds of billions of tips to find a new enzyme to break down a toxin or a new food source. And what happens then is that information then is incorporated genetically into the mycelial network, and the mycelium then surges because it has new food, logically. And so when it surges and it creates a new, what's called a sector of mycelium, we now know there's evidence that the mycelial network then, that it benefits from that tip exploration and discovery. So these are like massively resilient, adaptive organisms that have a network-based design, not dissimilar from that of our neural networks, not dissimilar from the computer internet. And more that I explore this, the more I'm convinced that we will find network-based organisms throughout the cosmos, probably fungal systems. And fungal systems ultimately give rise, in our case, animals. And it's more likely we'll find fungal-animal relationships all throughout the universe.
Do you think that there's some unknown way that animals are connected in some sort of a similar way as well? That if animals came from fungus, and fungus has this incredible way of communicating with each other, do you think that there's something like that in the animal kingdom that we haven't discovered?
Well, that stimulates my thought into talking about the microbiome. The mycelial landscapes networks, they don't live by themselves. They select a microbiome of bacteria and other organisms that rest upon the mantle. These fungal networks are the foundation of the food web. Well, similarly, we have a microbiome. And it's really interesting that many of the bacterial diseases that infect fungi also infect us. Our best antibiotics against bacteria come from fungi, penicillin being the obvious example. But we have found now doing next-gen sequencing, and this has never been published before, that the mycelial mats growing in the very same wood chips, in our case, that had been fermented, we had a 1,000-fold difference in the relative abundance of genera of bacteria from the very same wood chips, 2 different mushroom species planted on those wood chips, and the microbiomes that were created and selected for by the mycelium were vastly different. Yeah, Cordyceps lloydii, unilateralis is another one. A lot of these zombie movies you've been seeing have been based on cordyceps. And actually, I was a character in Hannibal Lecter.
You were?
Yeah, in the series. I think it's number 5. And this, I think, Elvin Stamets was this anesthesiologist.
They gave you your last name?
Yeah, he used my last name. And
why didn't they just call you Paul?
Well, they do on Star Trek. I'm a character on Star Trek.
Yeah,
now.
I know.
Yeah, they actually call me Paul Stamets on Star Trek.
How bizarre is that?
But so Hannibal Lecter, that series, I had all these people write me say, "Oh my gosh, you're this evil doctor who overdoses his patients with drugs and then puts them in the backyard and then inoculates them with mushrooms, just like cordyceps, coming out of the. So you can have mushrooms going in the backyard." And so when the Star Trek people called me up in August of 2016. I'm talking to them. CBS, set it up. They have to talk to you. They saw my TED talk and they said, "Paul, we're the writers of the Star Trek Discovery series. We're kind of stuck. We want to talk to you. We saw your TED talk. We're really interested." And I go, "Wait a second. Are you the one who put me in Hannibal Lecter?" He goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, let's get it right this time, So I said, "Okay." I said, foolishly, or maybe to my benefit, foolishly, I said, "Turn on your tape recorder. Give me the general idea. And let me run with it." And they said, "Okay, go for it." There's 6 of them, I guess, in the conference call. Foolishly, I said, "I'm a Star Trek fan," which is not foolish, "but I want no money for these ideas. I give you all my intellectual property. I want science fiction to predict science fact. The great thing about Star Trek is the flip phone and the iPad. I mean, those came out in Star Trek, and then it became reality." I said, "So you have a unique opportunity here of forming our future. Let's collaborate to create a future that's better for our future generations by inspiring students and young people to get excited about the science so they can help populate the universities to create the inventions that can help save this planet that's in jeopardy." And so I ran with the Star Trek theme, and we just saw the last episode last night. And astromycologist Paul Stamets is using the mycelium spore drive. It has become... I couldn't believe it. We're watching this thing, and the Star Trek, the main theme of Star Trek is based on mycelium and the concepts that I gave them. They've elaborated this, 6 ways to Sunday, so they've really taken it.
This is some sort of a propulsion system?
It's a propulsion system because in my TED Talk, and I've been talking about this a long time, about networks. We have the mycelial network, we have the computer internet, we have the neurological network in our brains, and the organization of dark matter conforms to string theory. So these are 3 archetype, the same dimensional structures stacked on top of each other. And nature builds upon its prior successes. So networks reward themselves by surviving from catastrophia. So I said, and I'm still bound by confidentiality, and there's an incredibly strict confidentiality agreement. I can only state which has been publicly displayed. But the mycelium spore drive allows through the internet of nature, you might say, to be able to go into hyperspace immediately by tapping into the mycelial archetype. And so astromycologist Stamets now is plugging himself into the mycelial network of the universe, and they can jump rather than using their standard hyperdrives, which you see them streaming across for hours from one part of the universe to the other. They can show up immediately and then disappear. But if you look at the multiverse, and I've had one or two in particular multiverse experiences where time and reality has changed in a way that I cannot explain. It's so.
What do you mean?
It's so incredibly profound that I still cannot wrap my mind around it. And
these are psilocybin experiences?
Psilocybin experience. So I think the psilocybin experience might be one portal, and now I'm going to sound like Terence McKenna, of entering into the multiverse. The idea that time can be bent, that there are multiple universes occurring simultaneously in different realities,